everybody joining us this evening. Thank you for taking time out of your holiday schedule to come to this session. What we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about our program, give you some background about the industry and what it means to be an instructional designer. We're going to talk to you then specifically about some of the logistical questions, like what classes would I take, how many credits do I need, what's a GA, what's that? What do those two letters mean? Graduate assistant, a little spoiler alert there. And then we've got some wonderful students with us who are going to show you some projects. And I always like it when students come because then you can ask, like, okay, what's it really like? Are these professors really telling us the truth? Like, what's happening? That kind of stuff. So that's kind of the overview. I will start. Let's just start with introductions, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So my name is Dr. Carl Kopp. I'm a professor here in the Department of Instructional Design and Technology. I've been here about 27 years, teaching all aspects of the design, development, and delivery of instruction in instructional design. Dr. Briskin?
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Jessica Briskin, also faculty in the department. I've been in the department now. This is, I think, year 6 for me. But prior to that, I was actually adjuncting for the department for a little bit. I come from the corporate sector. So prior to going into education, I worked in the industry as an instructional designer. So I teach primarily most of our corporate track courses in instructional design, visual design, and authoring. And we have 3 students with us that will help talk a little bit about the program. So I say, Emily, you want to introduce yourself first? Say what year you're in.
Sure. Hi, I'm Emily. I just finished up my first semester in the program, and I'm also a graduate assistant as well.
And I'm Annie Schmidt. I have one more class to take next semester, so I'm just about wrapped up, and was a graduate assistant this past semester.
And I am Abigail. I just finished my first semester of the program, and I also did my undergrad through Bloomsburg, so it'll be nice to chat with some of you all.
Great, thanks everybody. And I just want to, before we go any further, you are not required to have a vowel as the first letter of your name to be a student. It's helpful, but it's not a requirement. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about our field of instructional design and technology. Let me kind of hide all of these great things. Okay, so welcome again to the virtual information session for instructional design and technology. And one of the questions you might have is, like, what is even this instructional technology? My mother-in-law still doesn't know what it means. She's like, what? Computer, something. She's gotten better over the years, but still, a lot of people are like, well, what is instructional technology? So let's answer that question. And then can we see it in action? And we're going to show you some examples so that you can see it in action and understand what it's all about. And then who does this? Like, what kind of folks do it? What kind of skill set do I need? What kind of things should I think about as I do instructional technology? So the first thing to think about is that instructional technology is the designing of effective instruction, most often uses latest technologies. And what our program does is help students learn about the field of designing, developing, and delivering instruction. Now, we talk about the latest technologies because, you know, that's kind of ever since COVID, we've had distance learning, we've had online learning even before COVID, but we also have the same skills of facilitating classroom instruction. So it's any kind of instruction that you'd want to deliver, whether it's in an academic setting like a university, if it's K through 12, or if it's corporate learning. There's a lot of corporate learning, nonprofit learning that takes place, and there are ways to think about how that works as well, and we teach that in our program. So you might be asking yourselves, like, what do you, how do you do that? How do you design and create this online instruction or this technology that you're doing? So first of all, there's technology involved, but it's not all about the technology. When I say technology, I mean if you can type into MS Word, if you can type into PowerPoint, if you can manipulate a cell in Excel, you've got the technology skills. We're not a programming program. We're not going to turn you into a programmer. We're going to leverage the skills that you probably already have in word processing and slideshows and Excel spreadsheets and help that become online, easy to use wow instruction for learners. So we use technology, but it's not all about technology. In fact, online learning teaching is just part of instructional technology. The main element that we talk about throughout the program is this thing called the ADDIE model. And it's a 5-step model: analyze, design, develop, and implement, and then evaluate instruction. So the core of our program are these fundamental elements. And the really interesting thing is each of these elements contributes to creating effective online instruction. So analyze means, what is the needs, what needs to be learned, right? Who's learning what? Why do they need to know this? Why is this information important? What does it mean for the individual? So you do a little detective work, like, okay, company, you want to have training and leadership. Well, why? Are your leaders not effective? Are your leaders leading people astray? Are your leaders not following like, what's going on? So you do analysis, and then we do design. We design the instruction. So what should the instruction look like? How should it function? Those types of elements. And design is based on what happens in analysis. So if you do an analysis and you find out that, hey, most of your learners are really into games and gaming, then maybe you make the instruction a little bit like a game. If you find out that you have a very conservative audience and they're not game players and they want things, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, that's a different design. So you want to find that out. Then you develop it. As I said before, it's easy to use tools, and you don't have to take my word for it. You can take the student's word for it, and then you implement it. You make it work. How do we get this instruction working at a company, a school, or organization? So it's not just designing the instruction, but you want the instruction to you want people to take the instruction. You want it to be engaging. You want it to be interesting. So implementing it is really important. And then finally, evaluation. You want to know, does this even work? Are we creating instruction that's having an impact? And the neat thing I like about instructional design and this model, we call it the ADDIE model, ADDIE, ADDIE, is that any one of these elements of the model could be your full-time job. So if you just like to do the analysis, there are jobs where all you do is analyze. If you just like to develop, there are jobs where all you do is develop. Same thing with design, implement, and evaluation. So while we give you a broad depth in our program and allow you to kind of deep dive into what you like, all of these skills have become careers for our alumni. And so this is what makes it exciting for me, because you can come from any background, learn how to do ADDIE, learn a little bit of the technology, and soon you can guide your career path to wherever you want to go. So what kind of people work well in this field? Well, you need to write, think, innovate, and communicate. So if you're a liberal arts major, this is a great field for you because you can apply all of those skills to the design, development, and delivery of instruction. If you like to analyze, so maybe you're a little bit more like mathematical or an accounting background or even philosophy, and you like to say, how do these things fit together? Or what's the missing piece here? Or how come this doesn't work with this? Analysis skills are really helpful in our program. So is being a team player and teamwork. You will work with others. When you develop instruction, you'll have an instructional designer, you might have a graphic artist, you might have somebody who knows how to manipulate data. Like, all those people work together to make the instruction happen. So it's really kind of a great field for those who like to be a team player and work well with others. It's also a great field for those who are into creativity. Nobody wants boring instruction. They want it to be creative. They want it to be wow. They want it to be interesting. So creativity really plays a key role in making the instruction really pop for the learners. And creativity is very important. And also problem solving, because we have these problems like they're not learning this or they're not doing this on the job. How do we figure out how to get them to do it? And that's problem solving. So all these skills are taught, reinforced, and utilized in the program. And if you bring them with you to the program, all the better. But if you don't, then let's say you're really great at creativity, but you're not so much of an analyst, we'll do a little bit of analysis. Let's say that you're really analytical, but you don't have as much creativity as you would like. We'll talk about creativity. Your strength is what can be appealing to the program, which is kind of what we think is exciting. And those are some of the skills that you'll need and want to apply. So the field of instructional technology is a growing field. You know, in the past, from the pandemic, lots of people were learning online. People are still in hybrid work environments. The field of instructional design provides above average increase in employment in the next decade, the next 10 years. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics say that 10% increase in jobs in instructional design by 2026. And the national median wage is about $64,000 a year starting out of the program. So, you know, I have to say the disclaimer, you know, we can't guarantee any salary, but we've had students start out of our program 90,000 plus. Now we've had people also like 20,000 plus, you know, if you go into nonprofit, you're not going to make as much as if you go, you know, work on Wall Street as an instructional designer. But the one cool statistic that's not here is that, and I was talking to Justin, who's helping us out on this webinar beforehand. I didn't mention this, but the National Football League actually has been hiring instructional designers to help teach players certain skills. So imagine any profession out there needs to teach people how to do things. And that's what we do. We teach people how to do things. Most often we use a computer, but not always. The career paths are corporate trainer, curriculum developer. I'm not going to read all of these, but there's lots of different. We've had people go into security engineering. We've had people start their own companies, entrepreneurs. We have people freelancing. We have people working in school districts. We've had people working for the the FDA, Federal Drug Administration. We've had people working for the DEA. We've had people working for the NSA, three-letter organizations, but as well as IBM and Deloitte Consulting and every pharma company you can think of. So again, no matter where you are, somebody needs to learn how to do something. And that's what we do in our field. We teach people how to do things. Our recent alum have worked at places like Amazon, Mac and Talent, SAP, one of the largest software companies in the world. A lot of people don't know about it, but it does all kinds of stuff. Verizon, another person at Amazon, another person at WhatsApp, which is Meta, you know, the Facebook, well, the old Facebook. So our students work everywhere. They work in churches, they work in nonprofit organizations, they work in Fortune 100 companies, they work at universities, they work in school districts. So the opportunities are pretty much endless in terms of what you can do. So let me turn this over to Dr. Briskin, and she's going to give a little bit of the actual program overview. So I talked about kind of what the field's about, the fundamentals of what we teach. Dr. Briskin's going to get down to a little brass tacks and talk about, you know, what is our program. Dr. Briskin?
Excellent, thank you. So our program, we have two different tracks. We have the education track, which is our instructional technology specialist, as well as our corporate track. So those that are working more in industry, those that are interested in higher education typically are on our corporate track. And that is called our learning experience designer. So those are the two different tracks. We also have two certificates. So our certificates are the e-learning certificate as well as the game design certificate. So some students just start with certificate and they're not sure if they want a full master's. And so they may just start taking classes, and all of those classes will apply if you're in a certificate track. Then we have a lot of students that are in our master's program, and then they'll gear their electives towards either one or both of the certificates. You don't have to do the certificate. Some people just do the master's, some people just do the certificate. So there's many options that you can go through. And if you're unsure, it's something that we can sit down and talk about. To show you a little bit about our different tracks, I do have some of our planning sheets. And actually this was, I think, developed by Emily. I think you helped develop this worksheet for us, but this tells you a little bit about our program. So again, courses are 100% online. You can start any semester. So we do have fall start, spring start.
Oh, Dr. Briskin, do you want to share your screen? You want me to stop sharing?
Oh, I think, can you not see it?
No, I think I was sharing. There we go.
So we have, again, fall start, spring start, and then summer start. We don't have a winter start. That's the only one that typically students don't start. Classes do run year round, so can take courses fall, spring, summer, and we actually have a winter session that is starting up. Actually, Dr. Kopp is teaching one of our electives over the winter on AI. Classes are typically taught in the evenings from 6 to 9 p.m. They are mostly synchronous courses, meaning that you will meet with your faculty, you'll be with your peers, all online. We do have some asynchronous courses, only a few, but not many. So it is something that you will have to be present at class time. A full-time student will typically take 3 classes. A part-time student will take either 1 to 2 classes, depending on their schedule. And again, the nice part about having winter and summer sessions, so that way, if you are working in a school district, for example, and you wanted to kind of slow it down, you can pick up more courses during the summer sessions. To show you a little bit more about the difference between the 2 different tracks, I have our planning sheets here. So the first track that I did talk about was the corporate track, which is our learning experience designer. You will notice that there are 4 required courses. So instructional design, multimedia, intro to website, and intro to authoring. Then there are 4 different advanced courses, one being your internship. In total, there's 10 classes plus either your internship or your thesis. And then you will take 3 electives from that list. So we have really, if you want to gear in a specific direction, so if you're interested more in the visual design or the graphic design elements or more of the development, we have plenty of classes in that area. If you're interested in gamification or game elements, we have a lot of courses in that area. If you're interested in more of, say, the learning management systems, we have a learning management class. So you can really gear the electives towards where you see your career going. In comparison towards our education track, which is our instructional technology specialist, you also have 4 required courses. There's just a slight difference. There is some crossover. So you'll notice instructional design, multimedia, intro to website development, and advanced instructional design are the classes that cross over. But then on this track, you would have your tech planning and then your tech apps and your research course. As well as on this track, you have your internship or thesis option. If you are on the ITS specialist track, you do get the PD endorsement for the state of Pennsylvania. You do have to do your internship in a school district to be eligible. And then just like your corporate track, you select 3 electives from this list. Again, you can gear them if you want to dabble a little bit into the corporate side. You can take classes like the authoring class, something that is not required for this track. And same thing with your corporate track. If you want to get a little bit on the research side or more on the education side, you can take crossover classes between the 2 different tracks. And then our certificate, the e-learning certificate, is just 4 courses. So you'll notice this is how you can gear your electives towards it. So for example, Intro to Authoring is a required course for the corporate track. So that's something that you're already taking. And then you would take online course design and then 2 electives from that list. And then our instructional game design is 5 classes. So it's the gamification, instructional game design scenario, intro to authoring, and then your advanced authoring. So again, you have 2 different tracks to choose from, as well as 2 certificate options. So that is kind of a general overview of all the different courses that we have to offer. And then Dr. Gopp, do you want to go back to our...
Yeah, I also might want to add that if anybody has any questions at any time, please write the question. There's a Q&A at the bottom of Zoom. You can click on that. You can just click on chat. I think you could even come off mic so you can ask those questions. So we're going to definitely have time for questions to answer, but also if something like comes top of your head as we're presenting, please go ahead and ask that question. Let me head back to the presentation. Okay, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, there's a lot of stuff that Dr. Briskin covered, like she already covered, for example, a lot of good information here about example coursework. She covered the focus of our program, which is research and development, because we're a master's program, marketing and recruitment efforts. We have lots of corporate partnerships with some of the leading edge software in the field. We have a close working relationship with Articulate, which is one of the hottest pieces of software in our field. We work with Beyond, which is a huge software corporation in our field as well. as well as other companies. We just did a project, maybe Abigail can talk about, a project that we did with the Regis Group, which is a simulation software. So we do a lot of work with leading edge companies. We also, every year, take a group of students to the industry event, which is DevLearn. And they have an event called Demo Fest, where students and others demonstrate their projects that they've done. And our students have won Demo Fest. This is outdated now. I think we've won 10 years in a row. This is 3 years behind. So we've won 10 years in a row. Our students have won Best Student Award. This year they changed it to Best Academic Award because they actually had some academics who were not students. They were full-time employees competing against our students, and we still won. There is Annie. You can talk to her. She was this year's student winner, so she can give her insights into that, and hopefully you can tell the story of that. Then they have you do a webinar, and I think Annie's even got some freelance work out of that. She can talk about that a little bit. And then a few years ago, not only did the students win Student Award, but we also won Best in Show Non-Vendor Award, which means we were competing against companies. So if you worked inside a company, your projects were competing with, this is Jessica's project as well. So she won. So our students come to the field ready to perform because they use the tools that are being used every day in the field. And sometimes our students even bring tools to the field and to their companies that they work for. And so they're much heralded inside the company because they're bringing this new technology to the field. We've done things like website development, training workshops, distance education courses. Up here on the right is actually a virtual tour of the Bloomsburg campus. We've mixed, this is a Beyond character with real life characters. We've done video, we've done needs assessments. One of the interesting things about Bloomsburg's program or Commonwealth's program compared to some other programs that you might be interested in is we have something called the Institute for Interactive Technologies. We call that our commercial arm, but basically we do projects through the Institute. So we're working with a group of, we've created instruction for all kinds of things. We worked with the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape and created a series of courses for them, for counselors. We are working with a startup company called Shatterbox. We're creating courses on certifying somebody for small business administration. We've worked for Merck, had a local plant here. We worked for Kellogg. They had a plant that we created instruction for. We've worked with Black & Decker, L'Oreal, lots of different companies where we actually create projects. So as a student, if you become a graduate assistant, you get to work on these projects that are for actual clients. And so it gives you that real world experience of doing a project, which is really helpful when you go to look for employment opportunities.
Really quick, just a little bit about the GA. So if you are interested in that, so our GAs are typically full-time students. So you have to be taking at least 3 classes, which is 9 credits to be eligible for a GA. As a GA, typically you're working for us for about 10 hours per week. You do have to be available during the day just because we do meet with clients. And then we have something called hours where you're working with your peers on different projects. Not all 10 hours are worked then, but at least 6 of your 10 hours are typically worked during the daytime. And again, you do have to be a full-time student taking 9 classes. 2 of your 3 classes, so 6 of your 9 credits will be paid for. So that's part of the program, as well as you'll get a small stipend as well. So those are the 2 kind of perks of being a GA. And sometimes we have available 20-hour GAs, but most typically they are 10 hours. And so 2 of our students at the second half will talk a little bit about their experiences working as GAs.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dr. Briskin. And then one of the capstone courses is one called Managing eLearning Projects, where students get formed into companies. They get a mock request for proposal. centered around learning or e-learning, and then students develop a proposal in response to the request for a proposal, a working prototype, a sales presentation, and then they present to our corporate advisory council. And it's also an opportunity for them to enter into internship opportunities, job opportunities, and mix and mingle with professionals in the field. So one semester that's an online opportunity, the other semester it's face-to-face opportunity, and we bring over 30 corporations to campus to talk to the students, to some of them interview the students. And so it's a way of integrating, not just do we take students to conferences with DevLearn, but we integrate students and professionals together, because we want you to become part of the field of instructional design and technology. It's a large community, and we don't want education to be over here and the field to be over here. We want the two to be mixed because we feel that's really important. And that's our corporate advisory council. As I talked about, they come to campus, they talk to the students, they watch the students present, they even evaluate your presentations. So it's a really good way for you to mix and mingle and get a conference experience. Even if you don't go to DevLearn, right? You get a conference right on the Bloomsburg campus, which is a very nice and very effective way to meet professionals in the field and get job opportunities. Dr. Briskin, I'll turn it over to you for the application process.
So to apply for the program, there is an online application that you will have to complete. We will need all college transcripts, so that's undergrad or if you have a master's or anything from any accredited university. You need 2 letters of recommendation, as well as a 1 to 2 page essay. That essay is really just around why you're interested in the program, your career goals, and insights, just really a little bit about yourself and what you're hoping to get out of this program. We do not have a GRE or a GMAT that is required, and we have rolling admissions, meaning that you can apply at really any point of the semester. The cutoff date is 2 weeks prior to the start of the semester. So we are still accepting applications for the spring semester if that is something that you're interested in. But you do need to have all materials in at least 2 weeks prior to the start date of the semester that you would like to start.
So it'd be, in this case, mid-January.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, Dr. Briskin, I'll turn it back over to you and the students.
So I think this is a good time. Is there any, before we move forward to the student projects, does anyone have any questions? Again, you can use that Q&A or into the chat box. We want to make sure that we're answering any questions that you would have about the program. Excellent. So we have our first question. Asynchronous wise, so one of the required classes called multimedia is asynchronous and some of the electives are, but the rest of the required classes do require you to be in class synchronously. And again, all classes are at night from 6 to 9 p.m.
Eastern
Standard Time, yes. All right. As you're thinking of other questions, we'll turn it over to the students so you can start to see a little bit of what it's like to be in our program. They'll show some of their projects and talk about some of the classes that they've been in. So we'll start with Emily if you want to talk a little bit about, I think you're talking about Intro to Authoring is one of the courses that is required on our Learning Experience Designer track. And she's going to show her project that she developed. She's also a GA, so she will talk a little bit about what it's like being a graduate assistant.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and share one of my projects from Intro to Authoring. And this is the class where you really get to kind of utilize all of the different tools that Bloomsburg works with. So we utilize Articulate, Captivate, and Lectora. So I'm going to go ahead and show a project that I developed utilizing Lectora. So let me go ahead here and share my screen. And hopefully you can see this. All right. So this is a project that I developed, and it's all about that ADDIE model that Dr. Kopp had talked about before, which is really the model that we talk about the most in this program. And I developed this project using a style called New Brutalism. Hopefully I said that correctly. But this style really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Sometimes the hardest part about starting a project is just knowing how you want it to look. So Dr. Briskin gave us some constraints with this one. She wanted us to use a style, but other than that, creative freedom was up to us. And I think a lot of us, speaking for a lot of my classmates, after we did this project, we just fell in love with this style. It's not something that I probably would have done on my own, but it was really fun to develop this project. New Brutalism is all about like really bright colors, really bold, and that's kind of what you can see I used through this project. So on the front page here, you can kind of just see.
I don't think we're seeing that screen. I think we're still on your
Oh.
review link.
I'm sorry. Let me see. Let me reshare. I always have problems sharing, I swear. All right, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, awesome. So this is kind of just the very first welcome page. It's going to let you know that we're talking about ADDIE today. So there is a little spot here for the users to type in their name just to make it more personalized. And then once they click start here, it'll launch into a course navigation. This was really huge in all of our courses. It's always assumed that you would think the users know how to navigate through a course, but they don't always know that. So it was kind of eye-opening to me that it's so important to have a course navigation screen, even if it's just as simple as this here. But all of the buttons are going to have hover states, as you can see, down states. That's just another level of interactivity. That's really important once again. And then the next slide here is going to be the content slide. So at the top here, it's just talking very basic about the ADDIE model. This project is more so geared towards like non-instructional designers. So it's really just an overview of what ADDIE would be. So as they kind of click through all the letters here, it just gives them like a little definition of all of the different phases of ADDIE. And if I try to click next here, it's going to let them know at the bottom that they can't proceed until they click through all of those letters. So that's important because I'm sure we've all taken e-learnings that we just clicked through to get it done. So that's really ensuring that the users have to actually view the information. So once they kind of click through and read all about ADDIE, that is when they can click the next button to continue here. And then another thing that I learned is it's always really important to have like a transition slide. You don't want to just go right from content into a quiz. So right here, this is just an example of like a little simple transition slide, letting the learners know that they're going to now be taking a quiz. And then for that quiz, I developed a little drag and drop here. So essentially, the learners would be dragging a statement to the correct phase of ADDIE. And let's see if I can get it right. My first try. And then it'll, of course, give them feedback as well. And then after that, it kind of just takes them to a little wrap up screen here. That's where that personalization of them typing in their name comes in, letting them know that they completed the course. And I also added little buttons here. So if they wanted to restart the course and go back through it, or if they wanted to take a look at my reference slide, that's there as well. There's also a little menu up here in the upper right-hand corner, so they can go back and forth or jump around anywhere throughout the lesson there. But this is probably my favorite project that I developed this semester, just because, like I said, it was a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I ended up really enjoying the style that we used for this project. And Lectora was probably one of my favorite tools that we used this semester as well. So I think that's something really cool about this program is you're not just going to learn one tool, you're going to learn a lot of tools, and you're also going to feel very comfortable with them by the time that the semester or the program is over, which I think is really, really awesome.
Thank you, Emily. The project came out great.
Thank you.
Excellent. Before we move over to Abigail, I did see that there was one question in the chat box. Can you explain a little bit more about internships and how they work? So internships, depending on what track you are, most most individuals that are taking in our instructional technology specialist track work or do their internships in their school district. You can do them in an outside school district. Those that are in the corporate track, most of those individuals really will do those in outside organizations. If you're currently working in the field, you can use your job as your internship, but we do ask that you work on a project that's outside the scope of what you're currently working on. It is 240 hours total, and it spans the course of the whole semester. So really how you work that out with whoever you're doing your internship with will depend. So it can be 10 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours. We have students that work 40 hours a week. Again, it's just really how you complete those 240 hours by the end of the semester. You can complete your internships over fall, spring, and summer as well. We also have a part of our managing e-learning projects class that Dr. Kopp teaches. On the third day, we have alumni, and we have great partnerships with organizations in the community, really all over, that come over and interview our students. So a lot of our students do get internships through that class and through that day where they interview. We also have an internship coordinator who will send out emails really all semester long. So we have companies that will come to us and ask for interns. As well as we have a lot of alumni. And so whenever those are available, if they are sent to me or if they're sent to Dr. Kopp, we always send those over to Adam. Some are directly sent to him, and he will make sure that he pushes that out to all of our students. So there are plentiful opportunities that come from the program. We have many students that also go out and search them on their own. So they'll look on sites like Indeed or LinkedIn. There's a lot of programs that are running currently for instructional design internships. So for example, we had a student that worked for Tesla as an internship. He got that off of, believe it's LinkedIn, that he saw that they were having a summer internship program, and he found it through there. So there's many different ways. So it just really depends on the track that you're in, but it is 240 hours. And you can, if you're currently working, do it at your workplace. But the piece of it is that you have to be mentored by someone in the field, either that has an instructional design degree or some type of position in the company that's related to our field. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, Abigail.
All right, so I'm going to share something with you all from Dr. Kopp's scenario-based learning course. And this course really focused on like branching scenarios, simulations, and things like that. So this class was really fun. We got to work with the Regis Group, and they're a company that's developing a design, like a learning design tool that's predominantly like using AI, which is something I'm really interested in. So hopefully you can see my screen and I can walk you through some of what I created for this course. But before I do that, I just want to also reiterate how interdisciplinary this program is and how many different fields it sort of encompasses. I think that's one of the strengths of this program. So if you're kind of on the fence or you're wondering like if your present skill set or the thing you studied in undergrad will transfer well to this program, I encourage you to give it a shot because it has been such an excellent decision for me. And I have a really vast background and I didn't know whether or not ID was going to be the thing for me. And I am just immensely grateful that I decided to, participate in this program. So this training that I created was centered around ethical AI. And I think, creating these different learning simulations and environments, a lot of the things that come up in some of the corporate realm is like DEI, ethics, these sorts of bigger topics that are really important. And I wanted to create something that was focused on AI ethics as it's something that's increasingly relevant in our field. So just to give you some context, this is all built using what's called Rex, which is sort of like their own, I guess that's like a GTP model, where you can just input questions or you can prompt it, and it'll come out with all kinds of information and context for you to build a course. So it's a really interesting, company, a really interesting tool. But let me show you some of this before I just ramble away about Regis Company and AI as a whole. But basically, I developed some learning objectives here. I have a character. We'll dig into a little bit more of the backstory of this particular training. But I was able to add some questions, just, asking folks like, how comfortable are you with AI? How confident are you in AI systems and their ability to make ethical decisions? So I was able to generate, I won't play the audio through here because it might be a nuisance, but I was able to generate an AI voiceover for some of the content that's here. just to pull the learner in. And I developed this whole scenario about this philosopher named Bite Weaver who's going to a conference, and they're engaged in all of these ethical dilemmas. So it's your job as the learner to help Bite Weaver figure out the best way to navigate these different dilemmas. So let's just kind of blast through some of this and we'll get to some of the more interesting aspects of the training. So you can see here, there's like a branching scenario, meaning the learner's presented with an option or like a dilemma, and they can choose from multiple different options that will kind of implicate on the outcome. So this was all generated using Rex, which again is this particular tool's AI. So you can see you can have this back and forth conversation with another person who's at this conference. We'll just click through some random options here just to show you how it works. So you can see there's this sort of dialogue going back and forth in the form of like text messages or like email messages, which is kind of neat. And there's also these decision rationales that I built in here so you can have the learner explain why they chose the options that they did. So for example, you know, maybe they were really contrarian to whatever this character was saying. So you could just say like AI is scary or something like that, just as an opportunity for your learner to reflect. So good work. Oop, we did it. Continue. So now I have another dilemma. It's a thought experiment, you know, dealing with a medical issue and like triage with AI, you know, do we let the AI make these really consequential decisions? So again, there's an AI generated voiceover here that's narrating this scenario, and it just prompts the learner to sort of grapple with these really complicated things that might come up working in the medical field, for example. And then also some cool stuff here. You could, using this particular simulation software, you're able to build in these little like side panels and things with additional information. So I had fun just sort of playing around with that and seeing what was possible. And then I created a quiz. So, or not a quiz, but more so like, you know, another branch, like what do you choose to do in this scenario? And then there's some perspectives from other characters that I created who are sort of trying to nudge you as the learner to pick one option over the other, and you have to use your best judgment. So we'll just pick a random answer here. And then I also included the self-reflection page. So you're required to fill them out. So I'm just going to type randomly into them. But some questions like, after completing this training, how confident are you in evaluating the ethical implications of AI? So you can use this slider. And some of these, some of the ways that this particular software works too reminds me a lot of Articulate Rise. Like there's these like fun sliders and like these open-ended panels and stuff like that. So it was a really fun software to work with, because if you do, you know, end up doing this program, you'll work a little bit in Rise too. You'll get a little bit of those skills from Dr. Briskin. And it feels like some of these different programs like really transfer well to one another. So you'll end up being kind of like a master of all of them, which I think is really cool. So yeah, just fill some of these out. More questions for the learner to self-reflect. And then you can also sort of like what Emily had done in her project as well, you can build in different resources. So one of my resources is actually from another class I took in the program, which is web development. So you can learn to build your own website, which is really awesome. So that's kind of the gist of my project. And then here's like a results panel as well. That's sort of the gist of what I created in Dr. Kopp's class. But even beyond just the project, like I said, I think, you know, if you're on the fence or you're questioning your skill set, this is such a creative yet technical and thought-provoking field. And I think if you are interested in technology and cutting edge things like AI, if you're interested in educating people, but you maybe don't want to be a teacher, this is a really excellent field. So yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing your project. That's great. I didn't get to see that yet. Excellent. All right, Annie.
Thanks, Dr. Briskin. I just wanted to talk a little bit about being a graduate assistant first before I forget, before I show a project. And I know Emily might, if you have anything to chime in as well. So I highly recommend this if you're able to swing it with your schedule, and you do need those 3 classes. So I think I tried for like 2 or 3 semesters because I kind of went full-time and then part-time as my jobs and other things allowed. But you really get to work as a small team and work independently on projects. Um, like both Dr. Kopp and Dr. Briskin said, they do work with corporate clients. So you're working on some of those projects. So we got to work on something for Penske, which is a transportation company, and also a module that would train Pennsylvania school employees on homelessness in youth. So you get to work on a variety of projects and really kind of pick your direction there too is really nice. I got to dive more into script writing and video production, which was a lot of fun. And I know Emily did some designs that were picked by one of the clients recently for Penske. So you get to work with those other students as colleagues and then get a lot of feedback from the professors and the clients as well. So it's a really great experience and I highly recommend that. Emily, did you want to add anything about GA before I show another project?
Yeah, I think Annie hit a lot of the highlights there. One of the things that I did want to mention just about being a GA is that in your classes, you get like complete creative freedom, which is awesome. But being a GA really kind of teaches you how it might be when you work at a company, because a lot of them have like brand kits that you have to kind of follow. And sometimes it's harder to make a design when you only have 3 colors. And so you have to kind of even get more creative when you're a little bit constrained. And I think you kind of get the best of both worlds when you're a GA because you get that creative freedom in class and then you kind of have to learn how to work within a set amount of like design constraints with some of these companies that we're working with. So it is really, really beneficial.
That's a great point as well. All right. So I am going to share something from multimedia, which is one of the core classes. It's not letting me share sound. That's weird. I don't think it's going to let me share sound. It wouldn't allow me to check it, but we will see. So multimedia, it's a really deep dive into a bunch of different productions. So you do audio, you do a podcast, you do video. So I'm going to show, hopefully with sound, but maybe not, animation with a software called Beyond, which is used a lot for corporate training to do animations. And you have a lot of different assets to put together into scenes and then use pre-made animations or custom motion paths. So it's used a lot for instructional videos. You also do Photoshop and a variety of other projects. Let me try resharing just one time to see. It might be a panelist setting or something. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna have audio. I'll play it, but we'll see. Any sound?
No.
Okay. Well, I will just mute it and talk over it a little bit. So for my project, I decided to make a video that explains what a breadboard is. It was something that I struggled with and I wanted to be able to teach it to others. So it was a kind of a technical topic. So you can see the character. Those are pre-made assets in the software Beyond, but I also imported some custom assets, which were like the breadboard and the Raspberry Pi that you saw. So you can generate AI audio in there, and that's what I used, or you can record your own audio through VoiceOver. And it really just lets you assemble a story really quickly and in a captivating way. So this ended up being about a 2-minute video, and then I actually used it in my project for DevLearn at DemoFest, where I embedded this into a storyline project as part of something larger, where the learners would watch this video first to understand the basics of the breadboard, and then they would actually do a circuit simulation to build a circuit on a breadboard. So this is an example of a project that you would create in multimedia.
Excellent. This came out great. Will you talk a little bit about what it was like going to Demo Fest? or presenting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if so DevLearn is now in November annually, and if you're a student, you have the opportunity to apply to attend, and I highly recommend that. Just getting to attend and, see get to meet a lot of alumni, get to attend sessions, get to meet people in the field is really wonderful. And then you also present at Demo Fest. So it's kind of like a science fair of instructional design. You have your station. It's open for about 90 minutes, and then everybody comes up to you and you showcase your project on a monitor. And I believe there were 40 or so projects all presented at once. So you really get to just show your project over and over and over and over to professionals in the field. And I know a lot of the attendees to DevLearn, that's one of their favorite things to see, because you really just get to see real examples of what are people making. And they really love to see all the Bloomsburg and Commonwealth projects, I think, because we get to be creative and we're not necessarily constrained like some of the corporate projects are. And I did not expect to win, so that was very exciting. And so they now have the winners do a webinar after. So that was just this past week. So I presented alongside all of the other corporate winners. And then actually that day I got contacted by two people who had attended the webinar for some contract work. So I'm in the process of meeting with them now and seeing what comes out of that. So it's definitely a great experience if you're able to attend DevLearn.
Thank you, Annie. All right. I think Dr.
Great.
Kopp.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so I think those are good projects. Let's see if anybody, it's almost 8 o'clock. So let's see, are there other questions, concerns, comments, anything else we can answer to help you with your decision, whether it's this program or another one? A couple important things to note while you're thinking is that at Bloomsburg, the teaching is done by the professors. So we have GAs and not TAs. Some schools have TAs, which are teaching assistants, and your class will be taught by a TA. But here at Bloomsburg, they're taught by the GAs. I mean, they're taught by the faculty, not the GAs. So the GAs in our program do project work, but do not do any teaching of students. So that's a good thing to know. We do have, as Dr. Riskin mentioned, and I think Abigail mentioned as well, we're into AI. So we understand that's an important part of the field, an important part of what's happening. So we do think it's going to impact the future of e-learning and design. It's integrated into almost all the tools that we use now, have some elements of AI. So we are integrating into our program. We're also looking at possibly developing an AI certificate. I'm on the university-wide AI committee. Dr. Briskin and I have co-published a chapter on AI, and so we're very much doing work in that area because we do think it's gonna. We're not 100% sure how it's gonna impact it, but it's definitely gonna impact it, and we're definitely looking at ways that it will change and modify instructional design. Yeah, great question, Shannon.
One of the other questions that we often get is about computers. So do you need specific types of computers? Do you have access to the programs? So part of the program is that you get access to the tools. So for example, when you take instructional design or intro to authoring, you get access to Storyline, Captivate, and Lectora. When you're in advanced authoring, if you're using those tools in the class, you'll get access to them. So in multimedia, you get access to Beyond, so a full license. Same with Photoshop. In our visual design class, we teach Illustrator, and you have full access to Illustrator. In web development, you get full access to all of the Adobe products. So really, if you're in a class that used it, you'll be able to get access to that software. In the types of computers, so that is a hard question. That is always, it depends. So if you are a Mac person, you can definitely use your Mac. If you're a PC person, you can keep on using your PC. But just be aware that Articulate is a PC-based program, so you will have to run Parallels. That is something that is at a discounted price through our bookstore that you can get, but that is something that you would have to put on your computer just because some of the software that we use is PC only. So I don't know, Emily, Abigail, or Annie, if you have any suggestions on the computers that you have. It's a question that we often get of what options to go with. I would say make sure that you have enough RAM, especially you're running a lot of software, things like that for storage, and that you're able to run multiple programs at one time. So if it's something that's a little bit older, just make sure that you have enough room to put all of this software on there.
Something I would recommend too, if possible, I know it's not always accessible for everybody, but having a monitor is a huge benefit in this program because you're often going to be looking back and forth. And some of the software we work with, you're going to want to have on a big screen so you can really get granular. So just a suggestion. And also to your point, Dr. Briskin, I have a MacBook and I had no issues for the most part with authoring tools and stuff like that. So you can definitely do it with a MacBook, if that's helpful to anybody.
So you can keep, if you're a Mac person, I run off a Mac, so you can definitely use your Mac if you're a Mac person, but just be aware that some are PC only. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, are there any specific hardware or software requirements and be purchased in order? So, yep, so I believe I just answered that. So yes, we do provide all the software when you're in the classes, just making sure that your computer can handle the software. Any other questions? So I will share my screen with the flyer just again around the different tracks. If you have questions around the different tracks, if you're exploring them, we can always meet and discuss and see the right path for you. So if you're unsure, we have students that start in one track. So for example, the learning experience designer, and then they realize they maybe want to switch more to the education track, or if you're an instructional technology specialist, say you're in the classroom right now and you want to switch tracks, we typically start you with the classes that cross over between the two. So that is something that you can definitely switch over if needed. We also have a lot of students say that you're in the education track and you maybe down the road, you want to do some consulting and you want to have a little bit of a crossover with the learning experience designer for more of the corporate side. Those students often will do the instructional technology specialist and then add on the e-learning specialist certificate, because then you'll gain experience using the authoring tool, since that is a required course for that track and for that certificate. So that's one way that we kind of combine the two different paths. We have students that do dual tracks. So it's something that is really personalized to you and the career that you want to go down. And again, if you're unsure at the start of the program, we can start you off with the classes that kind of gear towards both of them, and then you can make that decision later on. You do have to start out with one, but you can easily transfer back and forth between the tracks. But once you get kind of more senior into the program and you start to specialize in one area, you will have to make a decision at some point. All right, so I think we are coming on 8 o'clock. So we will stick around if you have any other questions. If not, we hope to see your applications, and you can always email either of us, and we'll be happy to answer any follow-up that you may have.
Thanks everybody for coming. Really appreciate it. And again, as Dr. Briskin said, we'll stick around if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a great evening.